Scoops and smiles. I love it. I had the whiskey praline flavor, and that's probably my favorite.
Hey.
What is your favorite flavor at All Chill?
Right now, I'm going to say cornbread and caramel.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's my jam.
I love that. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the 4 Degrees to the Streets podcast. I'm your host, Jasmine Jones-Vines. I hope y'all are doing well out there in the world. Thank you for consistently supporting the show. You can follow us on Instagram, on Substack, on LinkedIn, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify at the number 4 Degrees Pod. I am very excited for today's conversation. I have a special guest with me in studio, Genelle Brooks-Petty, interior designer and businesswoman, owner of All Chill Hip Hop Ice Cream Shop in Leimert Park. Genelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the trip up from Leimert Park to Hollywood. I appreciate it.
We travel.
We travel. So we're going to have a really great conversation today about cultural preservation, about business ownership, about building community and sustaining community in one of Los Angeles' historically Black neighborhoods, Leimert Park. And so I'm going to start by reading Genelle's bio, have a little introduction on Leimert Park overall, and then we will get into the conversation further. Genelle Brooks-Petty is the principal designer of BPC Interior Design and co-owner of All Chill Hip Hop Ice Cream Shop. After sustaining a career in the fashion industry, Genelle's clientele led her to interior design. She honed her skills under a famed designer while studying interior architecture and serviced residential and boutique scale commercial clients of her own. Through this experience, she developed a unique perspective and mission-centered design practice. Her work is focused on cultural preservation and community building through design, which is the perspective that you bring to all of your professional ventures. Genelle is a graduate of Howard University School of Business, and she holds a Master of Interior Architecture from the UCLA California State Polytechnic University Pomona Joint Study Program. She is a member of the American Institute of Architects and past chair of the American Institute of Architects Los Angeles Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, a former board member of the Southern California National Organization of Minority Architects, NOMA, and is the vice president of the Leimert Park Village Merchants Association. And she continues her engagement through other impact organizations. Genelle is also an adjunct professor in the environmental design department at Otis College of Art and Design. She is a frequent design jurist and speaker at other design colleges and organizations. As the co-owner and head ice cream maker of All Chill, Genelle leads the community-focused business in manufacturing artisanal ice cream and servicing residents and visitors of Leimert Park, the historic Black arts and cultural district in Los Angeles. Built on the 3 tenets of culture, community, and cream, the shop is a purveyor of house-made artisanal ice cream and a hip-hop museum, gathering space, and platform for emerging local entrepreneurs. Genelle is a 4th-generation resident of Leimert Park who designed All Chill as a love letter to Black culture. Yeah. That is a fantastic bio. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
It's so crazy to hear it all in, a compressed.
Like I did all those things. I do all of those things.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be great. I'm going to now kind of set the table for us. We're going to be having a conversation, obviously, about your business, All Chill Hip Hop Ice Cream Shop, but also about Leimert Park and being a businesswoman and community advocate in Leimert Park as well. So let me set the table for all of us in the audience and our global community who may not be familiar with LA or the village of Leimert Park. So your bio ends with saying that you have All Chill as a love letter to Black culture. Yeah. And I would say that it's also a love letter to Leimert Park. Leimert Park is known as the Black arts, entertainment, food, and cultural hub in Los Angeles. On their website, the tagline reads, Leimert Park, where Black culture moves you. So I want to spend some time setting the stage up for our audience. So I pulled this data from the City of Los Angeles, their Office of Planning, the United States Census Bureau, and the Leimert Park Village Cultural Companion website. So those are the sources that I'm using as I tell this story. But I know that data obviously is only one factor of the story. So that's why I want to get your take on this as you listen to it live as well. Leimert Park is one of the first comprehensive master plan communities in Southern California. A real estate developer, Walter H. Leimert of Leimert Company, he's a German-American immigrant who was raised in Oakland, California. He partnered with the Olmsted brothers to build out Leimert Park, which started as 230 acres of land. It then started with the public realm, first building out the streets of Crenshaw, Degnan, and Leimert Boulevard. And then all of those streets converge into Leimert Park Plaza. That plaza is 1 acre in size, and it was recently designated by the city of Los Angeles as a historic monument. In the original master plan for Leimert Park, it included 417 single-family homes, 170 multifamily properties, that public park, the plaza, and over 5,000 trees were initially planted across those streets. The commercial corridor along Degnan was one of the main focuses in the center of that village, and then it also included one elementary school. At the time that it was built, those homes were sold exclusively to white buyers. The residents had deed restrictions on their property, which prohibited African Americans from purchasing the land. Over time and through civil rights action, there was a monumental lawsuit, Shelley versus Kramer, for all my nerd folks out there, in 1948, which ruled out racial deed covenants, ruled them to be unenforceable and unconstitutional. Over time, Black families began buying homes in Leimert Park, and they were met with the same resistance from the existing white homeowners that we've seen across the country in Chicago and New York. When Black families attempted to move into new areas, white families would sue the previous owner, right, saying that you violated your deed restriction. They would harass and intimidate prospective buyers. You might come and look at the property and get yelled at, get called different things. And then once, if you were able to successfully buy the home, they may physically attack the individual Black homeowners or vandalize, and in some instances completely burn down that home that you just purchased. And so lots of struggle in being able to access neighborhoods and access home ownership, really. Leimert Park is situated immediately adjacent to other historically Black neighborhoods, including West Adams, Baldwin Hills, View Park, and Inglewood. Leimert Park has defined itself as the commercial and entertainment hub for Black culture, with iconic locations like the Vision Theater, World Stage Performance Gallery, Chaos Network. Today, Leimert Park has a population of around 34,000 people, of which 60% are Black. So that's significantly greater than the average demographics across LA County, which is only at 7.5%, and the city of Los Angeles at 10%. So Leimert Park is definitely the Black cultural center for the city of LA. In 2024, this is data from 2024, Leimert Park had a Black homeownership rate of 29%. The majority of people living in Leimert Park then fall into the renter category, whether renting a single family home or renting in a multifamily property. The median household income in Leimert Park is $61,500. This is also using 2024 numbers. That is lower than the average for Los Angeles County, which is around $90,000. The median household for Black families in LA County is around 61, and then the median household income for Black families in Leimert Park is around 54,000. Now, the median household income is an interesting stat because it's just one number in time. So the other metric that I pulled out was just a percentage of households that fall into the different income brackets. And so around 50% of the households in Leimert Park have household incomes less than 60,000, but a pretty even split 30-20 between households that are between 60 and 125, but then over 20% of households in Leimert Park have incomes that are greater than $125,000 a year. So it gives you a good range of what you can see in terms of access to wealth, access to capital, and household status in that area. The community was designed with large Spanish colonial homes, which is very traditional to Southern California. You'll see arched doorways, you'll see rounded windows, you'll see tiled roofs, you'll see those wrought iron details. The average house in Leimert Park is around 2,000 square feet, or roughly 6,000 square foot lot. And the median home value in Leimert Park is slightly over $1 million at $1.4 million. And so strong neighborhood demographics in many ways. I'll speak to what Leimert Park is known for on a regular basis as people travel in the area. It's known for its weekly markets and their events along that commercial corridor. There's over 350 businesses in Leimert Park. A majority of them fall into the healthcare and social assistance realm, followed by food services and then retail rounding out the end. Just for my planners who are listening, from an urban planning perspective, Leimert Park is within the West Adams, Baldwin Hills, Leimert Park community planning area, and it is within the Metro, Los Angeles City Metro, the bus and rail system. It's within their Crenshaw LAX Transit Corridor master planning area. In 2022, Metro opened their K-Line station at the Crenshaw and 43rd Place location in Leimert Park, which is just steps away from Genelle's All Chill Hip Hop Ice Cream. And so the K-Line extension now connects Leimert Park to LAX, downtown, and if you take the extension or a transfer, you can get all the way to Santa Monica as well. So leading up to the completion of the train station, there was a lot of development in the neighborhood. You'll now see along Crenshaw and 43rd, large multifamily developments, sometimes 6 and 7 stories, which in Los Angeles is a high rise, if for my people in New York who could believe that. And so those developments are much larger. They average over 50 units, whereas the original multifamily homes were more garden style, maybe 5 or 6 units at a time. The community has been featured in a lot of planning studies, mostly because of the addition of that train station, right? The demand that it could bring. All of them, whether it's from the City of LA's planning department, from Metro's planning team, or even some consultants, urban planning consultants who had been hired, have all shown that the neighborhood has unmet commercial demand and underutilized land. So expect to see more development. And I want to talk to you, Genelle, about who tells that story, who gets to shape what Leimert Park looks like moving forward. So you've heard some of the data, some of the background, but let me get your take on that. Where do you sit?
Well, I think a couple things are missing in it. This area has one of the largest concentrations of Black wealth in America. And that's important because when we can talk about a percentage of folks who have over $100,000 of annual income, what that actually is a really wide range. Yeah. Right? And we can also note that most of the properties in Leimert Park Village specifically are Black owned. And most of the businesses, again, are Black owned. And so what that means for agency in the area and what happens and who can use that space, what goes into those buildings, and what comes out of those buildings. The community has a lot of say in. And I think that's an important part to understand with the pace at which things shift. And that's a different conversation about, access to capital and just municipal processes in Los Angeles, which churn very slowly. But I think the things that are happening in the village have a lot of input from folks in the village. And even that 20% that we're talking about with a particular income range over 100,000, they're very active, as are people at the lowest range. They're very active and vocal about the things that they want to see in their community, being that this is the last, I'll say, continuous Black historical district. There is a lot that is riding on what happens to the space and how it's programmed, how it's owned, and people are very protective, I think, of the space, which is important not just for preservation, but for having community that I think will continue to serve, Black community and the wishes and aspirations of it.
Yeah. Walking around, I saw the businesses have the tagline. I don't want to mess it up. One village, one Leimert. Is that what it says?
One village, one destination. One destination. And that is, I think, a longstanding idea that is congealing with us organizing ourselves into the idea that we do work together We want people to visit and meander and take time. We want to invite folks who've been away from the village, who live close and leave to do everything, back to see what is here now. I think disinvestment brings other things. And there were elements that were undesirable and honestly antisocial in the community. And so people, would maneuver and then, go out to get the things that they needed and wanted. And people like us and other folks who have invested in the community, not just as a place of residence, but as a place to house our businesses, is not new. It's just we're in a different cycle of it. We're in a cycle of it with a different political climate, which is also evolving. But, locally, we have an interest in the success of this community. We also have resources that will allow us to open businesses, allow us to sustain through rough times with the businesses. And I think coupling those things means that there is an opportunity, and not just for us to have the folks who have started their businesses there, but a community of folks who are saying, this place is valuable and this place is worth investing in, right? And hopefully other people will see that, who are value aligned and understand that this is a cultural hub, which has some nuances, right? Like I remember some years ago, Leimert Park has always been a mom and pop kind of place, meaning smaller shops, independently owned.
You definitely don't see any major chains, particularly along the central spine of Degnan. You'll see like the Chase Bank on the corner, which is more along the Crenshaw Boulevard side.
Well, you need banks. Financing is I'll say a difficult spot, and we've had to be scrappy about how these things are built. And there are some institutions that have had historical conflict, whether it was public or not. That's a whole different conversation. But some institutions that, at least on the surface, are saying we have some interest in servicing this community, right? And so you'll find some of that in the Crenshaw corridor. And I do feel like banks can do more to figure out how to be creative, and I think policy adjustments will need to be made in that realm. But the folks who have decided to invest are really committed, because the reality is there are other parts of town that being in business would be a bit easier. And so we're having to work together. Collective action is just what has served our community in the best ways historically. And so you can do that for very basic services, and you can do that for things that are beyond the realm of survival, right? And that's where we are with One Village, One Destination.
I love it. I love it. And so you have a lot of experience both as an entrepreneur and as a businesswoman, but also as a community advocate. And so I'm just going to run through some of the things that you do just as we lead into this. So you lend your design and interior architecture experience and your knowledge while serving on a variety of community organizations. Scope Los Angeles, which is the strategic concepts in organizing and policy education, as well as the Black-owned and operated Community Land Trust. You also serve as County Commissioner in the 2nd District of LA County for Marina Del Rey's Design Review Board. And then specifically in Leimert Park, you're the Vice President of the Leimert Park Village Merchants Association. But I want to start here. You're a 4th generation Leimert Park resident. Thinking about the numbers, that means that's your great-grandmother or your great-grandparents?
My great-grandmother and her siblings were moved here in 1928.
1928 into Leimert Park.
They lived on 43rd Street, a bit further east. But my great-grandmother's sister lived on my block. Like literally from corner to corner, she lived on my block.
Amazing.
And my grandmother, my grandmother's sister, my great-grandmother's other sister was in Baldwin Hills, so,
right
on the
up
other
the
side
way.
of Crenshaw. My aunt, my uncle, obviously my mother, now me, many cousins. Yeah. This place is home, right? And my family's originally from Louisiana on both sides. And a lot of the folks that made the migration moved into Jefferson Park, West Adams, Leimert Park areas. And my family still operates in those zones. Inglewood, and you find the Creole people, and my family is there. The Louisiana Creole people. Also where the Black Catholic churches were. Those were hubs. And Leimert Park has Transfiguration Church, which ironically is one of the few Catholic churches in Los Angeles that does not have a Spanish language mass. And I think that's because the people of the parish said, well, I don't know that serves this parish or this,
That's interesting. I have not thought about the faith-based aspect of coming from Louisiana and being Creole and what religion that demographic generally follows and supports. So I appreciate that's a new nugget for me to learn. But I want to ask this question for you. With you having this experience with your interior design background and being a fourth-generation resident, why specifically was it important for you to operate a brick and mortar store and have a physical presence on the commercial corridor in Leimert Park?
I felt like that was the place, and my husband, honestly, in our conversations just about how we want to engage in the world and with the resources that we have access to, noticed that was what was missing. We have a beautiful block. We have wonderful neighbors. School was a challenge. Our kids don't go to school in the community. And the commercial corridors, just being able to go to a coffee shop, a restaurant. So when people decided to open those things, we made a very conscious decision to support those businesses. I remember during the pandemic, specifically when we decided to actually open All Chill, we ordered food almost every day. And part of that was we were fortunate in that our jobs were not negatively impacted by the pandemic, but also saying, if we want these places here, we have to support them. And so you go a bit out of your way, and not really, because it's just as easy, I'll say, to go to Starbucks as it is to go to the local coffee shop, right?
100%.
And you often get, I think, something better. There's generally a greater connection to the folks because when their livelihood is on the line, they approach how they do the business a little differently, right? They actually want to know you, right? They want to know your order when you come in. They listen when you have comments, questions, you're asking for things. I mean, this happens to us. People ask, can you make so-and-so flavor? And, I hear it a couple times and I'm like, okay, fine. I'll make it. I'll make it fine. I'll make it, right? Ironically, our top seller is something that people kept asking me about.
And what is that?
Cookies and cream, non-dairy.
Non-dairy cookies and cream.
Yep.
Okay. LA has a lot of vegans.
Yes. And I read that Black people were 3 times more likely to be vegan.
Well, we do have that lactose problem.
So that might be an issue, but it also might be quality of dairy, right? So dairy uses stabilizers. Ice cream is often made with stabilizers, and these are things that we don't use. We use a higher quality dairy. That's not just because that's what I eat and want to eat. It's also just, my values being, illuminated through our business. And so I think our community deserves the best of everything. And so when we made the choice to oblige the request for cookies and cream, the idea was to make it as good as we could. And so, and for the folks who wanted it. So I was kind of being facetious, like, oh, you want cookies and cream? I'll make it dairy, non-dairy, whatever. And people were like, yep, thank you, and went with it. And we sell twice as much as the next top selling flavor. And
wow.
So it was, me being funny, but also a great business decision.
It worked out.
Yeah.
Well, let's go there. Let's talk more about All Chill Hip Hop Ice Cream Shop. It's open Thursday through Sunday, 12 to 7.
Yes.
and you have ice cream, sorbet, and vegan options. The shop, as you're speaking intimately about the process of making dairy, the shop is a licensed dairy plant, so you manufacture the ice cream in-house. That is fantastic. And so you're an experienced entrepreneur. You've operated your design business for a while. What really sparked your desire in ice cream as the product in your retail shop?
So I got an ice cream maker for our wedding. We got an ice cream maker. I'm the only one who's ever used it. And I would make it kind of experimenting, or my girlfriends and I would do a potluck once a month, and I would always make something sweet, ice creams being one of the things I made often. I have 2 children, and we love ice cream, and so we would go, and we would always have to get in the car to go and get ice cream, which I thought was ridiculous, and said, maybe this is an opportunity. I started doing some research about it, and there was not an artisanal shop within 2.5 miles of our current location, maybe a bit more than that. Some have popped up since, but still miles away. Culver City, Larchmont, downtown. And you got to go a little ways, like into downtown to get to it. And going south, it's more bleak. So
there was a gap. There was a need.
Yeah. And I mean, ice cream is universal. It's recession proof. It's delicious and joyful. And really understanding the development that was happening in the community as a result of Metro, as a result of, just the fact that it was underserved and people could afford the land to experiment with some things. It was an opportunity, I think, to know that there were 10,000 units of housing that were being built, and to question how that impacts a community. And we're talking about a historically Black community that was fought for, it was not built to be that, right? And so you mentioned a statistic about ownership and the ways that folks kept Black and other, people of color out of communities. And when we bought our house, I had a neighbor who has since passed. Many of my neighbors are older, and something that was not in the statistics discussed is age, which impacts income, right? She said, and she was probably around 90 at the time, and she said, I bought my house in 1965 when they had signs that said, will not sell to N-words.
Wow.
And she also said, I'm sure glad y'all not some white folk. And I said, you can't say that. She said, I can.
She can say whatever she wants at night.
I can. This is what I experienced. And while, my life is a lot more open, I cannot imagine the world where it would, well, I guess I should imagine today, but the world where someone would take the time to make the sign that said, I have no intention of honoring the law. I have no intention of supporting opportunity for these people based on this factor alone. I'm of an age where people hid that. A little more tactful. Yeah, there was some decorum about racism, right? No, but, in that, it cemented some of the ideas that I had about having safe Black space as I was starting my family. I moved into the house, my husband and I closed on the house and actually moved in 1 week before we had our first child.
Aww.
And so, she, and then our other child was actually born in the house accidentally. But
that's beautiful.
What that means is this place was the environment that I wanted them to know and to grow in. Emotional safety and a neighbor knowing your name and looking out for you, and Mrs. So-and-so.
And walkability.
Absolutely. Folks knowing my kid and correcting my kid if they're, off the line down the block, right? That's how I grew up in Leimert Park.
And that's how I grew up in New Jersey as well.
Like you pull it together because so-and-so's going to tell, right? My mom, my grandma, my aunts, like, the family was all over the place.
For me, it was my godmother. She would always see me somewhere and then call my grandma like, Jasmine's doing this. You didn't know? And by the time I get home, it's a whole situation ready to unfold.
I didn't want that smoke, so I was on the right path 99% of the time. My sister, on the other hand, that's a different story. But what safe space means and how you support that, right? Like you can just be your homeowner and keep your grass cut and wave at your neighbors or maybe go to your block club meeting.
And spend your money somewhere else.
Yes, and leave to go to the grocery store and leave to go to the coffee shop and leave to have your celebrations in restaurants and leave to go to the cleaners and all of those things. Or if you have them available and you feel like they are of a particular quality and standard, you will do that in your community. And honestly, I have a higher tolerance so that folks can get to it. Right? Like the processes that Baskin-Robbins has took generations to build.
Yeah.
Right? And so sometimes I'm not going to have that flavor because our processes include kids who this is their first job and they're learning how to do a thing. And I have to exercise patience as a business owner to get them on board, which is not always the most efficient way to do it. Also, I've never had a brick and mortar food business. And so 5 years in, there are still lessons that I'm learning, right? And so, we have this tendency to look at our businesses and say, we can't be on time, we can't have this, we can't do that. When the reality is our resources are different. We're coming into it differently. We're not privy to information in the same way. We're not resourced institutionally in the same way. Like, All Chill was built because we had a house we were buying during the pandemic. The deal fell through and we took the down payment and opened an ice cream shop that had the same values aligned with building in our community.
Yeah.
Right. And so
in your process to you speaking about the quality of dairy, right? Or the quality of going to Starbucks versus going to the local coffee shop is because they're national, because they have decades of experience, they're cutting, for lack of a better word, corners in a lot of the ways of their production so that they can scale. And in some ways you're trading off quality of product for speed or availability or
consistency.
Or consistency.
Their cups are cheaper than the local coffee shop's cups. And these are pennies businesses. Like you're asking a company to make a livelihood off of a $5 product. And in LA, where you said the average home in Leimert Park is $1.4 million. You need a lot of ice cream to pay that mortgage or a lot of coffee to pay that mortgage plus that rent, right? But in the vein of the one village, one destination, our landlord was an 80-something-year-old Black woman who gave us a chance and made the rate reasonable enough for us to start this thing, right?
Because she must have also seen the value in what you wanted to build.
Yes, she did like our idea. Another shop owner in the village said, I tried to get that space and she told me no. They're still open. They're still open in a different location. But, and it probably worked out better that space, they would have outgrown that space. But she had a vision for what her investment needed to be. And we were part of that vision for her, fortunately. And we were able to have something that has become embraced by community. And another point of connection for people in the community, as well as those 10,000 new people, right? We talk about who it's all for. And while I think it's partially a hub of Black culture, that doesn't mean that it's only for Black people, in my view. There's some people who do not feel this way. I think it's misguided in that I don't necessarily, I didn't grow up with a tradition of sushi making. That's not my culture. And so that means I'm going outside of that place, outside of our place for sushi. Well, there are things that are our culture And we should have a hub and a place that people look to as
go
the
get it.
authentic place for that, our culture, right? I think that we have, through lived experience, through our own research and interest, through our vocal traditions or our, passing down information and processes, we are able to do certain things like no one else. And I think we should be able to share that in respectful ways, and people should be able to tap in and visit and learn in spaces that are ours.
Yeah. I've always thought of Leimert Park as the Black central area, right? LA has all of any ethnicity is represented. You have Thai town, Japan town, Korea town, you have Little Ethiopia, Little Armenia, you have all of them represented. And I've always thought of, even from living in New Jersey and then moving here several years ago, of Leimert Park as being that place. I know that on Sunday, the street's going to be closed off and there's going to be vendors.
Whether we like it or not.
And I'm like, okay, well, I could go get me a T-shirt with Malcolm X on it if I need one really quick, or if I want to get a bean pie, I know where I could go get one, or if I want to get a Jamaican beef patty, I know where I can go get one, or some oxtail on a plate real quick.
Yeah.
And so I like to put Black cultural spaces in that same context as a Koreatown, as a Chinatown, even though they might not be as large, right? Chinatown is a huge area in downtown. Leimert Park is a much smaller area, but it's just as impactful for the size of our population in the county.
Yes. And honestly, I feel like there are so many ways that Black culture is expressed because we have culture throughout the globe. And like you said, Patty's West Indian culture. We talk about Little Ethiopia is in Mid-City, but we still have African culture represented in Leimert Park, and a range of African cultures. Like the reality that there is a range of African cultures is something that is clear in the Village, right? And Black American culture, uniquely Black American culture. If we're talking about hip hop, that is a Black American art form. We talk about jazz, that is a Black American art form. And those things have history in Leimert Park Village, right? Visual cues coming from all over the world exist in Leimert Park relative to different lenses and lanes of Black culture. And so it's obviously, to me anyway, a place that people should be able to go to learn about our culture respectfully, right? Should be able to come in and, my aunt worked in entertainment for many years and was often the only person doing the thing, right? She worked in public relations, and that was, part of my early work. And I remember her saying on multiple occasions, "I'm so tired of being the ghetto tour guide." And it's basically like people just have not done their work to learn about our culture, right? And is that because we don't have the spaces where it's okay to go and ask questions and learn? I'm fortunate to have friends from all over the globe, and that means there is safe space for them to ask questions and for me to ask questions. I have one of my girlfriends is from Hong Kong. One of my closest friends is from Hong Kong. And I remember having the conversation about weaves. And she said, "Okay, can I ask some questions?" And I'm like, "Yes, let's do it." She's like, I know my side is like the sales of it all, right? And maybe not even my culture specifically, but parts of it who have kind of dug into the retail side and production side of this thing. But like, how does it go in? What is the thing?
What's the install process?
Yes. And she could sit there and watch it and ask the questions or just hair is just kind of a surface level thing that is very impactful in our community because it's been used as a weapon and a point of rebellion but we could have that conversation and it doesn't shift our friendship for her to want to know how a weave is installed. Like a track weave is installed. Fine. Great. And what is this curly perm thing that you all do?
Yeah.
Right? Like wanting to, if we have those curiosities, have a safe place to be able to ask those questions and that be revealed without it being like, y'all don't know nothing about us, right? Well, no, we don't know about their culture either. Let's be honest. Our culture is very closed and we know the parts of culture that we're forced to learn, right? When we're talking about architecture, this is a conversation I have on that side of my work, is what is a Black architectural vernacular, right? Well, we've been making do around here. So we haven't had the luxury of expressing what architecture should be as a reflection of our values, right? We're looking to our education, which is largely Eurocentric. We're not even digging into the cultures that we know have existed for time and built for time beyond. If we're talking about, architecture in Africa, if we're talking about architecture in Asia, if we're talking about the Middle East, like just so many cultures that we know are documented for thousands of years before Europe. But our education is centered around European architecture, which is crazy and, not, I don't want to say it's invalid, but I'll say it's just one lens. And when we step outside of that, we are really testing and figuring out how to express our values in what our built environment is. And this is an opportunity that we currently have in Leimert Park. I think there is a lot of building that needs to be done. The village ownership is reflective of the community. It's interesting to hear that the ownership is 60%. And I'm really wondering what those boundaries are that are noting that
this was
ownership.
particularly using the zip code 90008.
Okay. Well, I am curious to even understand, because when I first opened the shop, who my neighbors were and who the ownership was one thing. Now it is different. And so I would be interested to see what those numbers look like now, because there has been a concerted effort for local ownership with value and trying to understand what people's intentions are and trying to hold on and redevelop. And, there's some people who are just like, I live in Vegas and I don't really care.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting part. Once the city makes an announcement that a new train station is going to come, right, and that happens 10 years before,
right,
all of the people who have money start calling people who own property and trying to trade it. And you might not even know in 2012 why you're getting a call for this offer on your property, but they know that the train will be there in 10 years and that's when I'll get to recoup my investment.
And the irony in that is there was a building next to ours that we were next to where the shop is, that we were inquiring about purchasing, and even just understanding what the parameters might be, because the values were so all over the place. There wasn't this real kind of understanding. And there was one owner that owned a bunch of it. His family owns a bunch of properties throughout LA, largely in this area, or did anyway, and then in another area. And he said, this is the number and the train is coming and it's just business. And I said, actually, it's not. It's not. And when we're talking about preservation and intrinsic value, if you will, I mean, it has a market value, but the intrinsic value changes things. And he absolutely took advantage of that and sold buildings over market rate for what they were and where they were and the investment around it. And then that skews the market, because now it's a comp. And the folks, meaning the local community, who is largely already outside of bankable for commercial real estate, is even further away now, right? Fortunately, there were some very diligent folks in the neighborhood who said, nope, we're going to figure it out. 30% over, it is what it is. And we are going to find the resources that will get us there. And there were some financial institutions that took some shots and probably sweat quite a bit with explaining some of these decisions to their boards, but it only takes a couple people in the right positions to shift things for a long time. And so you had that plus political will up the line, polarizing always. Politics is just somebody gets that gig and they're public enemy number one. It doesn't matter how good their intentions are, what the actual scope of their authority is or jurisdiction is. People will blame them for anything wrong forevermore. But I think we have a political will to do right by our community, in some very intimate ways and then in larger ways. And people are really working their beat and doing their part to try to make this thing incrementally better. And over time, we see it. Our expectations shift. The target changes, and how we engage with each other and people trying to do business in the community is important to understand, to know, and to respect. One of the things that I think is interesting is like people will not do the things that they will do in their own community in a different community. Leimert Park gets compared to Larchmont often. It's human scale architecture.
Yeah,
You know,
design.
single, if not two-story corridor surrounded by lots of homes and walkable, right? Street parking and a couple smaller lots, right, that are owned by the city. Nobody's setting tents up on the street in Larchmont. They wouldn't dare do it. But they are entitled to the space in Leimert Park Village. I find that crazy. I find that mind-boggling. No one who even decided to set up a tent in Larchmont, let's say someone did, they're not going to leave their trash there. No. But in Leimert Park, it happens every week. And so, you know, having community agreements, I think, is important to do. And I think this is something that we're moving into. And just really teaching and reteaching ourselves how to interact with our community in ways that lead to the more idyllic vision of what our community and what safe space for different folks is. Right?
And the level of services that the city is willing to provide to different commercial corridors varies drastically, which has a lot to do with power and influence and capital of saying, oh yeah, we know to do sweeps here nightly. And that is discouraging for someone who's transient in a way also. And that changes neighborhood to neighborhood based on power and political will as well.
And resources, let's be honest. If a neighborhood needs more police action or services I say police action, which really is a broader term to reference, ticketing so that cars are not there overnight or abandoned, exactly. Dumping, antisocial behaviors, if you will. These are different teams in the city of Los Angeles. It's not always, say, your council district. It's not always LAPD. It's not always Department of Transportation. Like, it's different entities, and they have to coordinate to do that. And also, it's not that they're not interested all the time. It's that it takes more in this community. So like we have BIDs or business improvement districts as well. We have one, it's reinvigorated. These are quasi-governmental organizations. But the BID has a responsibility to a particular area outside of the realm of the city's responsibility.
It's a layer.
Yes, it's a layer. And the priorities of the BID are contingent upon the needs of that community, right?
And particularly the needs and desires of the business owners.
The building owners, not the businesses, the building owners, because that's who contributes to the BID. Now, the business owners may be involved or on the board, but the money that goes in comes from the
owner of the building,
the owners of the building, who are not always aligned with the needs of the businesses.
That's the tenant in their building.
Yes, yes. I mean, you know, everybody has a part to do. If you don't pay your rent on time, how do you expect your landlord to provide the services that you expect them to provide? But if the city agencies have not kept the street able for your business to operate, how do you expect your business to have the resources to pay your rent on time? Right? So everybody has to do
There's a balance
their
of
part.
public and private investment.
The municipality gets the blame even though their resources are limited. Their resources are only as far as their taxes go. We do community cleanups in Leimert Park, and the things that we find are not something that someone else brought into the community. It's something that people right here left. And so if we're looking at that as, like, who was responsible for that? It's us.
It's ourselves. Yeah.
Right? And so it can tell you many things about what's happening in the community. If you have a bunch of liquor bottles, you got a problem that needs to be addressed, right? And who is the agency, or what is the agency that's required to manage that?
Yeah.
Right? The crazy part about all of this is that you have to think about this if you're doing business in Leimert Park. You cannot just go open your door and serve ice cream. It just doesn't work like that. I don't think the community interacts with you in a way that allows you to be good, like successful as a particular business owner, if you don't have a larger interest in the success and the development of the community, right? If people don't believe that you have their interest at heart, they don't want to support what you do.
We're talking about cultural preservation. We're talking about prioritizing how owners, whether you're the building owner, but also the tenant in that space who's going to be activating it with their commercial space, has to also have some sort of vested interest in the success of Leimert Park as well, because it's not just a place where you can just pop up shop and expect things to mobilize quickly for you. No. So to that point, at All Chill, you are both the hip hop museum, and you welcome space for local entrepreneurs and community events. And I know the three tenets are culture, community, and creaming, so I'm imagining that's the culture and the community piece. But why is it important to utilize your space as more than just a place for you to sell All Chill's products, but also to activate the community and let it be a venue for emerging entrepreneurs?
So I am a serial entrepreneur, and I have had other ventures. I had a chocolate company for some years with a dear friend who is a very talented chocolatier, tax attorney turned chocolatier. And so one of the challenges that we had was where we were going to sell the things, and the value of shelf space. And just seeing that if you have a home, a consistent home, where people can find your things, it just makes getting to success a little easier, a little better. So, having that brick and mortar was important for us, but also allowing other people to use the shelves that we have. We don't have a lot of space, but having some folks who come in and do pop-ups, or partnering with organizations for fundraisers, or we have bread pudding by Elaine's, which is delish, and it's not something that I'm gonna make, and it's good with or without ice cream on top. But things that are complimentary, or just things that are just totally off to the side. We have books that are related to hip hop culture and other things that I think are interesting, particularly for children. Sometimes ice creamy or artsy things that we'll have available for sale. And it's just using the space that we have to help the next person build their thing. Maybe it's proof of concept.
Yeah.
And that doesn't take a lot for us to do, right? So it's just one way that I think is important to engage with the entrepreneurship community, especially for us, because it is more challenging for us to find the resources that we need to make our things go.
And I think it's also a good way to help encourage other people who have businesses, whether it's a product-based business or a service-based business, to be able to test out their product, their service in Leimert Park, and then as other spaces become available, right? A lot of the new residential buildings have ground floor retail, right? Who can take over those spaces? Also, I think it helps to be able to at least proof of concept and test out what you have in someone else's space before making that investment on your own.
Absolutely. Finding ways to test the thing beforehand is smart. Also seeing what's already in the community to know what gaps need to be filled. So, ice cream, like I said, was not something that existed. Artisanal ice cream did not exist for a couple miles in any direction. And there are still many services that I think Leimert Park needs, or many offerings that Leimert Park needs. We also have a concentration of specific types of services that I think cannibalizes the business of all of them, right? And so looking to add something to the landscape as opposed to repeating what's already there having a unique perspective with the thing. I'm not stingy with information either. I've had people talk to me about how to start a frozen dessert business. It's a lot of work, and tell your story. Here's the information. Here's how I started it. Be well, go do the thing.
Do what you can with the information you share.
Yep.
In addition to being head ice cream maker at All Chill, you're also the vice president of the Leimert Park Village Merchants Association. Talk to us about the significance of that work for you, and how the organization sees the goals of Leimert Park as we're talking about new development, the train stations, activation, and just the capacity for that market to grow and expand.
I think the businesses and organizations that are involved with the Merchants Association are the folks who have made a consistent effort to improve the community over years. And we have legacy businesses, we have new businesses, we have cultural institutions that have been around for generations now, or for a couple years, right? And so these are folks who have made the choice to have a door in the community and to be a part of its preservation, which I think exists best alongside development, right? And so there's some, collective work that has to happen to maintain this place. And so I see small business as an opportunity for community development. Having moved my design studio to Leimert Park over a decade ago, deciding to open a public-facing business like All Chill, and doing that, we only looked at Leimert Park Village. The point was to be next to other businesses that were choosing to be or to represent improvements in the community or to be assets to the community, right? So Hot and Cool Cafe, now Aura, and Haroon opened, and they were very open with information and encouraging, and I had lots of questions and patronized both too, because I wanted them there, right? And wanted to be in a community that people could stop in and hang out in and have a vibe, right? And we all have our nuances and ways that we do the things, but everyone has a part and has the opportunity to tap into parts of the community in different ways. I touch a whole family, multiple generations, where another business may just speak to the adults in the community. Another one might just speak to music heads, right? And different forms of music, and we have a museum that speaks to folks who have some care about art, right? Bookstore, same thing. There was a legacy bookstore that was in the community. They retired, and a new bookstore opened with a different energy and a welcomed energy in the community and an interest in programming that spoke to a different demographic, right, of our community as well, right? And so the organization really allows us to organize ourselves for community benefit, allows us to be a support to one another. We share resources. We talk about the things that we're doing. Other people can have that information and have some input about how to help, make that happen. We cross promote. We have joint work. And then for larger things, we work together and go into our corners and make sure that our piece is done and come back together to make the puzzle whole. And so we also advocate as a group, right? And I think that the voice of a chorus is often louder than the voice of a soloist. And
100%.
And so when we're saying we would like safe and clean streets, it is heard differently when 50 doors are saying it, right? When 50 tax bases are saying it.
Collective power.
Yes. Absolutely. And that doesn't mean that we don't have internal conflict. That doesn't mean we're a family. We are cousins who fight. We also get over it and get back to the business of making our community better. We check each other when we're, off and sometimes we have to pour into one to make their situation better, right? And so these are the things that I think are the value and why I've decided to put energy into the Merchants Association. There are people who are investing in this community that I live in, that I'm growing my family in, that I work in every day. And I wanted to do my part to create opportunities for a new generation, for folks in transition, and create a gathering space again for the full family.
I love that. As we wrap towards the end of the episode, and I feel like we're gonna have to have another conversation, I want to get your last take on this point. There's a lot of conversation around gentrification. There's a huge sign in the neighborhood: "Stop gentrification, protect Crenshaw" is what the sign reads. And I think of yourself, and as you speak about the other business owners and operators who are part of the Merchants Association, I think of you guys as ones who are loyal and committed to the community, and willing to prioritize, obviously, profits, right? You have a business to run, rent to pay, things like that, but also wanting to help preserve the culture of the community. What do you envision as the future of Leimert Park, and how do you see it growing in the way that you would like to be a part of shaping that future?
I think that Leimert Park is a place that is and will continue to have the opportunity for self-determination. We are not just preserving a culture, we are building on it. And I mean, culture is something that is living. And so as we do things, we are shaping the culture, and we can hold on to the parts of the culture of our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and say these are the parts that serve the future. These are the parts that need new platforms. These are the ways that we can engage now in order to build something for our posterity to be able to thrive, have opportunity to thrive, have space to retreat to, which I think is important in the world, is having a space where you can actually not have to be on, but have the opportunity to just be fed.
Yeah.
Right? In quiet, in song, in, movement, in sounds and smells, right? Viscerally, this place has the potential to be a respite. And so, and an energizer.
It definitely energizes me. I live near Larchmont Village, which is a very different neighborhood demographically than Leimert Park. It's predominantly white, predominantly Asian. I often see Black people and I'm like, hey, y'all. They're often older, obviously, but they're always very excited to see me. But I love going to Oro or Haroon and being able to co-work from there, because when I'm sitting in a coffee shop in Larchmont, I might be the only Black person in there. And I'm like, well, this is definitely not a place where I'm going to meet a friend or a man or anything like that.
Maybe you would.
Maybe.
But it doesn't initially, because of history, feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. It's a trauma that we're having to manage constantly, right? And so we should have spaces where you can let that go. I went to an HBCU, and this is one of the things that people are like, well, why? I had someone ask, my kids are in private school, why would you send them to private school if you just want them to go to an HBCU? And the wild part is that they didn't understand that was an insulting way.
Yeah, because it's higher education. It's a university.
I mean, and Howard at that. So, and we're insufferable. But I think they didn't understand that there was a whole layer of stress and cortisol that is released.
Yeah.
Because you are not worried about race in the same way. And you don't even realize you're doing it all the time.
Until you go to a space, you walk into Aura and you look around, and then I think there's something also empowering about seeing other Black people actively working and being creative and doing different things, whether it's marketing or PR or urban planning, and being in a space where we're all in different assets, because I think the world tries to make us feel like we're a monolith.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not just in the actuality of what people are doing, because that's not always obvious. It's seeing the variations of us It's hearing the variations of us, and quiet joy, like peace and inaction, right? I don't know. It's something that I think we are working to make bigger and more accessible. And so, long live Leimert.
Long live Leimert. Well, I want to leave you with the last word. If there's anything you would like to share with the audience before we wrap today's conversation.
Visit
Leimert
Park, leimertpark.org. You can go and find out about All Chill and many other businesses and services that are available, cultural institutions, programming that's available.
How can they support All Chill?
All Chill, come to the shop, give us a call, give us an email, All Chill Inc., like incorporated, INC, allchillinc.com, on Instagram, on Facebook. That's how you find us. And we can do anything from scoop service to classes. We have an educational arm that we teach science through ice cream. Entrepreneurship, hip hop culture. These are all things that we have expertise in. Catering, absolutely.
Okay.
Scoop service from our Scoop Squad, Scoops and Smiles.
Scoops and Smiles. I love it. Well, thank you all for listening to the 4 Degrees to the Streets podcast. This has been another fantastic episode of the 4 Degrees to the Streets podcast. My only ask for you is to share this episode with someone in your community who cares about their neighborhood. Peace out, y'all.